Hey, what's up? This is Zach here at Token 2049. Super excited to be at the Holochain booth. Mary and Liz couldn't be more kind of excited to talk about what we're going to be going into today. You guys just had a huge announcement this morning. What do you want to say that again here? What was the announcement?
Yeah, well, so this is Mary. I'm the executive director of Holochain, and Liz is one of our advisors and working with us on ventures. And we went to the EY sponsored event that was called
the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. So this is a consortium of business as well as advisors who are focused on building real solutions on the Ethereum blockchain.
Great. So we did a great presentation. It was a lot of fun. We were walking through what is Holochain as a verified data engine and what kinds of things have we done to show it off. So it was really fun. We got to pull out the old Fractal Tribute game that we created last year, which was a great POC that engaged our community, kind of showing how you can really take Holochain and have it working side by side with blockchain and get really like the connection between the two of them to create that validity that goes across chains. And so, a lot of people in the room probably had never heard of Holochain, or maybe they had heard the name but weren't really familiar with what can you actually do with Holochain and how does that translate into real world problems and solving the issues that companies have, that corporations have, that enterprises have. So I think Liz talked about a whole lot.
Well, you just hit on my favorite topic, which is how do we come up with practical real world solutions that solve business problems that exist today? And when we think about this space, there are so many shiny and exciting technologies, and they are solutions in search of problems. What we started with is the pointy end of business. And so with the announcement we made today of our new venture, our new product, visible verification, literally everything is in the name. So what's the practical problem that we're solving? One of the most ubiquitous things that companies in this space have to do is provide proof that their algorithms, their smart contracts, what they're building is what they say they're building, and that it has the security and it has the integrity that they are presenting to the market, to their investors, to potential creditors. And that requires audits. Right now, so many security audits are PDFs that are published to websites, or they're sent via messaging applications like Telegram. How do you know their provenance? How do you know their authenticity? And so what we are looking at with visible verification is a service that publishes and authenticates, verifies the audit. So you can trust that what you're looking at is the true and accurate audit that you were promised it was. And when we think about how does this help? Well, we need to provide more assurance in this industry. We need to provide more confidence, and we need to eliminate uncertainty. That's what de-risks. And so we're looking at solutions that are very practical that solve those problems. And that's what visible verification does. And it's very straightforward. It doesn't require a token to operate. It's a service. And this is a fantastic technology for providing services that solve business problems.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We came into this particular problem space because we had a customer, or we had a partner that we were already working with that said, hey, we'd really like to publish our audits in a better way. We're working in the Web3 space and we're publishing PDFs to a website, in 2024. And so we've been in a conversation with Liz at Least Authority. She is actually the first customer of this product. And she's helping us define the product as well, because it really does come from a need in the industry. And the thing is there are lots of different examples of where you have to get proof, you have to get other people to validate something that you've done. Whether, in this case, in this industry, the biggest one is code audits, right? And you need them across the board. We've had how many, maybe 4 code audits already before we've even launched for Holo and Holochain. And that's really important because not only is this something just for the public to know, we get these in part to tell us something. So the first part about it, where you're just getting them for yourself, do you really need to go have something up on the blockchain or in a Holochain application that's, with the attestations? Maybe not. But the thing about audits is that what you're looking at is that you get them over and over and over. Any company that only does one, well, code changes. Audits need to follow that change. And so why we have multiples is we've continued to improve, we continue to evolve the technology that we're working with, and we're continuing to get security audits. And this is true for everybody in this space. So it's really important and that this kind of thing exists. And what's great for us is this is coming out of proofs of concept that we've already built. This is not like, we're not reinventing the wheel for this, is what I'm saying. Like, this product is really something that's vetted. When we built Fractal Tribute, for example, what we did is we connected a Holochain application to an NFT engine, and we were easily able to have the person who was saving something into a Holochain application mint the NFT. Well, that's exactly what you need to do with the audit report. The auditors, they're actually saving their audits into this DHT, this application, this verifiable, system. What's the name of it? Visible. Yeah. So the auditors are actually saving their audits into visible verification, into the Holochain application, and minting the NFTs. And then they're sending those NFTs to their customers. And in this industry, everybody expects to receive things in NFT style. If you're not in this industry and you're doing a different form of audit, for instance, maybe you've got a safety audit in a different context, maybe they won't need the NFT part of it, but you're still getting the attestation signed by the private keys of the people who do it. That means it's dated, and you've got proof forever that this was done at this time. And not only is it just a proof, like a date and a stamp, it's connected to the literal report. The report is published into the space. So it is all signed and secure in the same way that, blockchain makes things secure. For transactions, Holochain is making data secure and giving provenance to the actual asset data that is saved into the application.
I want to follow that up, because one of the reasons I'm so excited about this product is that it is exactly what Holochain does best. Holochain is great at data verification. So when you think about blockchain, it's really good at making sure you don't double spend your money. Holochain is really good at making sure you don't double spend your data. And so with this, the best service for business is essentially notarization. That is a major issue, especially as we deal in more digital environments. Holochain is purpose-built to solve the issue of notarization in business, because that is the ultimate in data verification. So I'm excited about this because it's not trying to come up with an off-label use of the technology. This is what it was built for. And so it is built for purpose. It's fit for purpose. And again, it's solving a real problem for businesses that they're experiencing right now. And it's improving trust and confidence. And that's something that's really important for us in this industry. We want to be mainstream. We want acceptance of the technology broadly because we know what it can do. And here's a simple way to make that happen in the real world with a service that people are already seeking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really interesting because we're just sort of now seeing these actual use cases come into the space that actually affect real people. Auditing is huge. You could ask my grandma, you could ask someone 100 years ago and they were getting audits. So this is something that clearly has a huge sort of gap. Why do you think it's taken so long to address this sort of gap?
Well, Holochain is a fit for purpose technology, infrastructure technology. You can't do this just with blockchain. That's why it's taken so long. You need Holochain because we hear a lot about real world assets, right? And how do we actually verify and validate real world assets? We talk about all these on-chain solutions for real world assets, but what's the problem with them? what data do you actually need to prove the real world asset? Oftentimes it's a lot of data. It's not one field. It's not like a several fields of metadata that you might be able to pay the cost to put on chain. What you have sometimes, just think of like all the documents you sign when you buy a house, for example. That transaction is trying to represent a transition of a real world asset from one person to another. Well, the transaction part of from whom to whom, that's easily done on chain. It's very easily done on chain. It even captures the amount of that was the consideration for that contract. From whom to whom and how much and when was it done? You've got that. But what about the other 100 pages of documents, at least in the United States, that you sign to do a house purchase? Those things are attestations. Those things are not built into the transaction as a real world asset, but yet they're required. They're required by regulatory agencies, government agencies. They're required by your buyer. I want to see the inspection that was done. Who was the inspector? When was it done? What did it say? Is that the real inspection that we're actually signing for? Wait a minute. Is that the one that I received 2 weeks ago? I want to make sure. Hold on. Let me open up my folder over here and compare right here when we're signing, right? We put so many things that cause conflict and negotiation and management, and lawsuits, into the process of doing transactions that are about high value real world assets. And Holochain is actually great for holding that, for storing it, for giving the notarization. This was the document signed at this moment for this transaction that happened related to the real world asset that's defined, oh, by the way, in this other document that has all the information about how many square feet, how many acres, whatever it is that defines the property, and what part of it is shared and what easements, all what other legal aspects are. I mean, you can go on and on and on because it is that complex. And the reality is that the blockchain by itself cannot handle that level of complexity. You need something that provides data verifiability. You need something that is much more flexible, something that you can create a data vault in, but that connects that same authenticity and verifiability over into the blockchain transaction. Because what we've said, what we did with back in the day, a year ago when we created Fractal Tribute, and what we're doing today with applications like visible verification. I'll get this right.
Cool name.
It's a great name, but I keep trying to say three things. So what we're doing today with visible verification is connecting the IDs from this is the document that we're saving here in Holochain, and the same key that is placing those, publishing them, putting them up for notarization is signing for the transaction on the blockchain as well, which means that you've got an unforgeable link between the two systems. If somebody has basically the hash of the blockchain, they're looking for it, they're going to have a link back, an addressable content link back into the Holochain application. And this is what's critical. That didn't exist before now. We weren't ready. Holochain wasn't out there building applications. We didn't have an ecosystem that could be building applications for companies, for corporations, for real use that meets the needs of the legal, financial, tax, auditing, those areas. And now we do. So this is an example of one coming to life.
So kind of getting into us being here in Singapore, what was sort of the goal for going here and to this, EY event?
I'll take the beginning of that. It's great. Token 2049, like a lot of other large events, they bring a group of people together. And, in this case, there's a lot of different kinds of people playing crazy games, doing loud, noisy things, playing a lot of techno music, and talking a lot about things that, are very big right now in the crypto space, like payments, and all the different layer 1, layer 2s that, are trying to market to the various products for payments and liquidity. But it's a lot of the same types of things that you see if you walk around these things. Well, there's also, though, an ecosystem that's sort of surrounding that that is built up with businesses and people who have to do the accounting, the legal, the work of the companies that are inside this industry. They come to these events as well. And so a lot of the time that I've spent here has been in events where it's a little bit quieter. Some people might say it's a little more boring. That's okay. I'll take it. And we're really talking about those exact issues. Like, what are the challenges? What are the challenges with getting your accounting done? What are the challenges with getting your governance done? What are the challenges with getting all of your ducks in a row so that you can get a financial audit, all of your, transaction detail ready so that you can actually convince a bank to give you a bank account? Those are real problems and challenges in this industry that a lot of people here are facing. And those are the kinds of conversations that we're here to have with people, because we want to be part of building solutions that solve those kinds of problems.
No, and I agree. And I think those conversations aren't boring. I think those are actually some of the most impactful, because those problems aren't going away. Like, they're huge problems that affect, like you said, every person in this building in terms of payments. Everyone has to deal with payments. Everyone has to deal with some sort of audit or contract or solution in that way to manage their business. And I think the closer you can get to the people who are having to deal with that, to actually understand their pain points so you can build for them is super important.
I agree. And so why Singapore?
Yeah.
Singapore is a massive hub financially for business in all of Asia, Southeast Asia in particular. This is where international business comes as a launch pad to the East. And so what you have here is you have a mix of industry. So if you look around the streets of Singapore, you will see advertisements and you will see on the sides of buildings companies that are in energy. You'll see financial services. You'll see consumer goods and services. You'll see everything here. And so if you want to be in a place where you can speak to as many people from different backgrounds as possible and get a sense as to the common challenges that they're facing. You mentioned payments. One of the best use cases here is cross-border payments. Where is there friction in the system? Where is it difficult to transact? How can we make that simpler? And that's an area where, again, Holochain shines, because there's all of this context that goes with transactions. There's all of this information that companies in particular need to manage around their cross-border transactions, especially around things like currency, foreign exchange. And so being in a place like Singapore, where you have so many different industries, you have so much activity.
So much currency exchange.
So much currency exchange.
Seriously.
There's a lot of money that flows through Singapore.
Yeah.
And it's not the only use. One of the things that happens in this industry is we fall into this belief that everything has to be DeFi, that everything has to be about purely financial transactions. And there are a lot of important financial transactions. And all of those transactions are underlined by documentation and context. And that's where Holochain shines. And that's how we come into contact with the blockchain. So at something like Token, we have the ability to talk to folks who are doing payments. We have the opportunity to speak to companies that are doing major financial services. And if we look at who's represented here, yes, there are plenty of companies that are in crypto. There are plenty of companies here that are audits. But there are a lot of companies that you or your grandma would recognize.
Yeah.
Who recognize the power of this technology and its importance in eliminating friction in business. And again, I'm going to come back to cross-border payments, because that is a major thing that happens here in Singapore. So this is the place to be.
Just, I'll say one more thing about the I love the phrase you use, eliminating friction in the business processes that we're all using, right? There's a lot of friction in crypto that kind of comes with the some of the innovation that got started a couple 15 years ago, or maybe longer now. The point that I'm making is that there's even more friction that is being added every day by every jurisdiction. that friction is a different form of friction. It's not the technological friction that came with the innovation of crypto. What it is the friction that comes with having to meet the regulatory requirements
Bureaucracy.
and the bureaucracy of jurisdictions. And it's not going to go away. It's only going to increase. Every year that goes by, all the companies using crypto are having to meet more and more like regulatory requirements. And those regulatory requirements, all you have to do is go look at TradFi instead of DeFi for a moment and look at, okay, what do they think is important? You have to be able to know who you're doing business with. It doesn't matter whether it's peer-to-peer. It doesn't matter whether the network is distributed. If you're on one end of a transaction, you're supposed to know who's on the other end of a transaction. And that's what the regulators care about. And they're going to keep coming up with ways to make that happen, regardless of the tech, because they are tech agnostic. They are rules based about how they want society to work and in a jurisdiction. And so what we're looking at when we go and have these conversations with people in a place like Singapore, that like you said, it's filled with every type of business doing every type of complex interaction in trade that you can imagine. And what we're here to do is to listen to what are the challenges that they have. Where are the places where a simple solution can actually reduce that friction? And when is that appropriate for Holochain? Because we don't want to build something. We don't want to go building a bunch of things. Yes, we build some POCs to demonstrate and de-risk some things, but we're not building things that there isn't a customer on the other side of. We're interested in where are the challenges in real business situations and what should be built from a tech stack that meets the need.
So I think it's interesting you're talking about context and the context of Singapore and the adoption, and where do you think that we are right now in sort of the adoption curve in where are we? And put us in context right now. Are we, is this happening? Is the cross-border payments, is Web3 happening in the way that we expect it to happen? Or are we still infancy? Is it still speculation? Is it, there's a lot to kind of consider.
I mean, all of those things are true at some level, right? But where are we in cross-border payments? We've been doing them since the beginning of time. They just have looked different, and they've been harder or easier. And sometimes they took people months to get on a ship and go across the ocean, right? I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
We are human beings living on a planet, and we continue to do a lot of the same sorts of things together. It's just about what our expectations are. How fast is it? How easy is it? Who gets to do it? Those are the things that are changing with the technological revolutions that we've been seeing. And so cross-border payments, go back 25 years, and basically it was a couple of companies that had the market, that cornered the market on being able to send them from, I think about the cross-border payments just between Mexico and the United States, which has been happening for decades, if not longer. I don't know how to estimate these things.
A long time.
But right. I mean, a couple of companies were managing that for everybody, and very sensitive. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not trying to advertise for them right now, but the point is that's been transforming, right? That's been transforming into traditional banks. That's been transforming into new forms of payment that still was TradFi. And then it started transforming into crypto. And now it actually is easier and easier into certain parts of the world with crypto than it ever was before with traditional finance. So I think that it's not going away, but I would say to a large degree, it is in its infancy, and it's in its infancy in terms of total acceptance by the various jurisdictions, right? Some places it's tacitly agreed to exist, and there's a lot of ambiguity about what really you should do or how it should be done. In other places, it's completely been accepted in as a primary form of currency exchange, or even, as we know in a couple of countries, currency that is recognized as the currency of the country. So I think that's pretty exciting in some ways, but it comes with, a lot of risks too. I mean, it is the infancy means that it's not all figured out. A lot of things can still go wrong. I think right now what we're seeing is sort of a leveling up of some of the services that can be provided that lead into more trust and more consistency with the use of crypto in business in particular.
So thinking about it as a maturity curve. So one of the things that you look for in the maturation of any technology or business process or business is when the regulators get involved, because regulation is reactionary.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately.
Yes. So in a sense, a lack of regulation can spur innovation. When you don't know what the rules are, you can create whatever you want.
Just gonna play.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where the reaction of the regulators is to say, now we need some guardrails, because what we're looking to achieve from a policy perspective, because these are policymakers, what they want to do is they want to put the guardrails and the guidance in place so that the users of the technology or the users and those customers of the business know that there are certain standards that will be met and that ultimately protect them and protect society. That's the purpose of regulation. So in this case, when we start to see regulators taking notice, it means we made it.
Yeah.
We're winning.
Yeah, that's right.
When the regulators notice you, you are winning. And if you've never had to deal with regulators before, if you've never had to deal with revenue authorities, it can feel pretty overwhelming and pretty restrictive. I would also argue that a lack of guidance and guardrails doesn't mean you have unfettered innovation forever. It actually starts to create challenges and problems, because what will happen is, without any sort of standard or guidance for different jurisdictions to refer to, everybody's going to do their own thing. And then you have an even worse position where you're trying to, one, figure out what's going on, and then two, figure out how you're going to comply with it when there's no overarching framework. So in terms of the maturity, where are we? Well, first, we're winning, because people are taking notice.
Winning.
We are winning.
Great.
We're all going to make it. The regulators have woken up and they've taken notice, and now they're trying to figure out, how do we put the framework and the guidelines around this so that it achieves what we want from a policy perspective. And those on the business side, those in the technology, are trying to figure out, well, how do we play our game as these new rules are coming about? And how does that perhaps restrict or change what it is that we're doing? So from a maturity standpoint, I would say we've reached the end of the beginning. And we're moving into the middle space now. And what happens in the middle space? It's actually very similar to how groups form. First, people come together, then they go through this storming period where they try to figure out, how are we all going to work together? What are our norms? What are our standards? And then you reach a point called norming. And that's where you come up with the agreed upon guidelines, guidance, recommendations, framework for how you're going to interact. So where we are right now is the norming period. So we are smack dab in the middle of the maturity of this technology for business, where we have had unfettered innovation. And now we're starting to see guidance. We're starting to see guardrails. We're starting to work on how we come up with norms and standards so that we can interoperate as businesses and jurisdictions. And so there's a lot of resonance between the systems. There's a lot of resonance between the technology and how blockchain works and how international business works, how domestic all business works. So we have gotten to the end of the beginning, and now the adventure continues in the middle. And it's the missing middle, because we're figuring it out. So it would be great if we matured into a space where all the rules were clear, everything was coordinated, and we knew exactly what the guardrails are. We don't yet. And so that's what we need to work on. And we need to do it collaboratively. And that, again, that's what this technology is built to do. So it's a very exciting time. And it is also one that comes with some uncertainty. But again, wag me. We are all going to make it.
Amazing. Yeah, please. Well, thank you both so much for the amazing interview. I definitely encourage everybody to follow Holochain. There's a ton of Holochain. There's a ton of amazing tech coming out. I actually am personally very interested in the auditing space, so I'll be following along closely. I recommend all of you to, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from the team soon.
Excellent.
Thank you.